The 1970s. A decade of cultural upheaval, economic challenges, and unprecedented fear. Beneath the glitter of disco and the rise of personal freedom was a sinister reality. Names like Ted Bundy.
Ted Bundy is not just another death row inmate, convicted of 3 murders in Florida, suspected of a great many more in Washington State, Oregon, Utah, and Colorado.
The Zodiac Killer.
Search goes on in San Francisco for the man known as the Zodiac Killer.
And John Wayne Gacy became infamous.
His name is John Wayne Gacy, convicted of killing 33 innocent people and destroying hundreds of lives.
Their crimes shaking the foundation of public trust. The rise of serial killers during this era wasn't just a grim anomaly. It changed how society viewed safety, policing, and even strangers.
Every time he turns around, I kind of get that feeling, he's gonna get me next.
This is the story of how a decade of fear transformed a nation. Before the 1970s, the term serial killer didn't quite exist. But as crime rates rose, patterns emerged that shocked law enforcement and the public. Ted Bundy, for example, used his charm and intelligence to lure victims, creating a profile that defied expectations.
I'm not afraid of him. He just doesn't look like the type to kill somebody.
Bundy's ability to blend in with society was chilling. As crime writer Ann Rule described in her book The Stranger Beside Me, I would have trusted him to fix my car or babysit my kids. He didn't look like a man capable of murder. He looked like all of us. Similarly, the Zodiac Killer terrorized California with cryptic messages. His cryptograms, such as infamous ciphers sent to the San Francisco Chronicle, further deepened the mystery and fear surrounding his identity. Law enforcement was initially unprepared for this new wave of crimes. The FBI, under the leadership of agents like John E. Douglas and Robert K. Ressler, pioneered criminal profiling to close the gap in investigative techniques. As Douglas recalled in Mindhunter, we began to realize that if we could understand the why behind a crime, it could lead us to the who. The behavior at the crime scene became our biggest clue. The media played a pivotal role in amplifying fears.
On in San Francisco for the man known as the Zodiac Killer. The elements involved today included psychiatrists, astrologists, and police guards for school buses. Terry Drinkwater reports.
School children are nice targets. I shall wipe out a school bus some morning, shoot out the tires, and then pick off the kiddies as they come bounding out. That was the threat of the Zodiac Killer. Now, every day, police cars follow the buses which would be likely targets. Officers armed with shotguns take the threat seriously. The psychotic killer has already murdered 5. 1 at a lover's lane near a lake just north of San Francisco. 3 others in nearby Vallejo. The latest, a taxi driver in San Francisco. The Zodiac Killer seems to crave publicity. He sent letters and cryptograms to newspapers and the police, recounting his crimes, threatening more murders, and making Bay Area residents very edgy.
Graphic news coverage and sensational headlines shaped public perception of safety. This was particularly evident during Ted Bundy's trial, which was the first to be nationally televised.
The murder trial of Theodore Bundy goes into its 4th week in Miami today after a long weekend. Friday's session was delayed because the defendant was suffering from a virus. He's accused in the brutal slayings of 2 Florida State University sorority sisters in January 1978. His trial has attracted a steady and unusual stream of spectators. Robin Lloyd of station WTVJ reports.
Each day, the courtroom is filled with spectators drawn by a fascination with Theodore Bundy himself or by the gruesome details of the crimes. Blood-stained pillows, pictures of the murdered co-eds, evidence that the women were sexually abused. What is unusual to see is that many of the onlookers are women, young women, contemporaries of the 5 Florida State sorority sisters who were assaulted in their beds a year and a half ago.
Every time he turns around, I kind of get that feeling, he's gonna get me next.
But yet you're fascinated by him.
Very, very. Every night when I go to bed, I just, I get very scared. I shut my door and lock him,
I'm not afraid of him. He just doesn't look like the type to kill somebody. You try to imagine yourself in his place, and to see how he's feeling looking at the pillows with blood stains and everything, if he really did it or not.
The trial has drawn women from as far away as Seattle, where Bundy is suspected of other sex murders.
As Bundy himself remarked during an interview,
people need to recognize that it's not some kind of those of us who have been so much influenced by violence in the media, in particular pornographic violence, are not some kinds of inherent monsters. We are your sons and we are your husbands, and we grew up in regular families.
The innovations of the 1970s, like behavioral profiling and advancements in forensic science, revolutionized law enforcement.
So, in effect, they're not as protected as a cuspage, which are tucked back in like this. It marked. There it is. You can see it.
Right. But the only way you can explain it is by looking at those teeth and saying that it marked. Well, you can't explain it without looking at.
Okay. What you're saying is that based on that, I can't tell the heights of these teeth by looking at the bite, and you're absolutely right. I had no intention. Looking at a bite pattern like this on somebody, I wouldn't have any intention of trying to make a comment as one tooth is higher than the other. In this case, taking the overall bite into consideration and not hypothetically eliminating 3/4 of it, it's obvious here that the person bit harder on this side. And if I was asked later on now, are these teeth to the left higher than the teeth on the left? No, because on the right, I mean, because of the two bites, and here you've got to cross-check one against the other. If you didn't have this second bite at all, or bite B, and you just had ring A, then we would have to say in all fairness that there is that possibility, yes.
Today, DNA evidence and interconnected databases ensure that many serial killers are caught before they can strike again. As Robert Ressler reflected in Whoever Fights Monsters, we could finally see patterns that connected crimes across jurisdictions. Profiling wasn't perfect, but it was a tool that saved lives.